as our guest speaker, and it's timely storytelling through what no not, I don't even know my own topic. Oh my lord. Anyways, Dr. Lee, you got it. You know the exact title. Thank you for being here with us. I'm going to mute myself and the floor is yours.
So awesome, guys. I'm going to record on my end as well. So awesome. Thank you so much for the invitation to be here and to address this wonderful group of ladies. When I saw the title of your group, Kingdom Women in Business, I thought I have to speak to them. But the challenge that I was facing was that the topic of sales, a lot of people, feel kind of icky about sales, or they have a negative association with sales, and they're not very excited about it, which is understandable. So today I wanted to share with you a lot of strategies that I have found that helped over the years. After having done over 1,500 sales calls and presentations, I figured out what works and what doesn't work. And I've also taught these same strategies in front of thousands of entrepreneurs and business owners who have then gone on to make their millions. So what I do in my business is Mastery Insights. I help entrepreneurs to get to the next level of their business, and I show them the systems and strategies that I use to get into the 2 comma club. There's 2 commas in a million. So the 2 comma club are income earners in their business who have made their first million. And I show entrepreneurs how they can achieve those results too. But when I started in my business, I started on the career side of things as a career coach and helping professionals achieve what I call vocational confidence. And then eventually there was a new opportunity. A lot of professionals wanted to start their own business. And that's how I journeyed into consulting. So I'm just going to share my screen. And there we are. There we go. So this is what I'm talking about today. Story selling secrets, right? How you can sell anything using the power of stories, right? And there is a very famous saying that says, facts tell and stories sell, right? If you want to tell the facts, that appeals to the logical side of your brain, but it doesn't move people into biomomentum. Stories is what does that, because stories create emotion, and emotion creates motion, right? So that is the theme of the talk that I want to talk to you about today. And just a little bit of background, Dr. Grace Lee, the doctor, is in neuroscience. My expertise is in neuroscience, which is really understanding human behavior, human psychology, and why we do the things that we do. So I'm going to share with you a little bit about that and how story selling can really get you to the next level. But first of all, I have to address the elephant in the room, right? The elephant in the room is that most entrepreneurs feel like this icky feeling whenever they talk about sales. Oh, I don't like sales. I don't like chasing my clients. I don't like feeling like I have to hard sell and convince anyone. It just doesn't feel good. And it really doesn't. So here's the thing about selling. Selling is God's idea. Business is God's idea, because it says that the people will curse him who withholds grain, but blessing will be on the head of him who sells it. Blessing will be on the head of him who sells it. And here's what this verse means in Proverbs 11:26. It means that if you have something good, if you believe in what you do, a message that you are going to get out there, a way that you're going to serve the people who you were meant to serve, the people who are assigned to you, if you believe in what you do and the outcome you can provide for them, that you have a moral obligation to sell it. You have a moral obligation to sell it. Because otherwise, if you don't do whatever you can to sell them on your opportunity, then they're going to continue on their life or in their business or in their career or in their relationships, and they're going to continue in that pain. Their problem is not going to get solved. So that's why it is our moral obligations as entrepreneurs to provide them with a solution and do whatever it takes that we can to sell them on it, because we cannot help them until we sell them. Right. And so that's why I wanted to address the elephant in the room. We feel icky about sales, but it's not that we hate sales. We don't hate sales. It's not that we hate salespeople. We don't hate people, right? The reason why we feel a negative feeling, an emotion associated with sales, is because we had a negative experience with salespeople in the past who did it wrong. What they did was they put their sales quota before the client. Right? They put their sales numbers, their sales goals before the relationship. And that's why, and we've all experienced this before, whatever it is we were buying in the past. And that's why we have a negative association with sales, right? But here's the thing. Whenever we look at everything we own in our lives, even the money we have in our pocket, the money we have in our purses, we have to be very grateful for that money. And we have to be grateful for the things that we have in our lives, because the only reason why it's there, the only reason why we own those things, the only reason why we have the money that we have is because somebody somewhere sold something to somebody for a profit. So we have to be very grateful for salespeople. Salespeople are doing great work out there, and it is a noble profession. And in fact, it is one of the most noble professions out there, because without salespeople, that's how this world goes around. That's how people make changes in their lives. That's how people become better versions of themselves. And so selling is actually a biblical principle. Right, in 2 Kings 4, the story of Elisha and the widow's oil, right? A certain woman of the wives of the sons of the prophets cried out to Elijah, saying, "Your servant, my husband, is dead, and you know that your servant feared the Lord. And the creditor is coming to take my 2 sons to be his slaves." So Elisha said to her, "What shall I do for you? Tell me, what do you have in the house?" And she said, "Your maidservant has nothing in the house but a jar of oil." And then he said, "Go borrow vessels from everywhere, from all your neighbors, empty vessels. Do not gather just a few. And when you have come in, you shall shut the door behind you and your sons. Then pour it into all the vessels and set aside the full ones." So she went home, shut the door behind her and her sons, and who brought the vessels to her, and she poured it out. And now it came to pass, when the vessels were full, then she said to her son, "Bring me another vessel." And he said to her, "There is not another vessel." And so the oil ceased. And then she came and told the man of God. And he said, "Go, sell the oil and pay your debt, and you and your sons live on the rest." Sell the oil and pay your debt. You see, there's so many times, countless times, and I don't even have time to get into it right now, countless times in the New Testament that tells us that the kingdom of God is like a business. There's so many times examples of stories, not just in Elisha and the widow, but King Solomon, Joseph, where they told them, "Sell your stuff. Sell your stuff so you can have what you want. Sell your stuff so that you can help other people." And so God has shown us over and over again that the way to get what you want is to sell what you have. So selling is a God principle. It's a biblical principle. And so when we have a negative association with it, it's not that sales is a bad thing. Sales is a noble profession. We are called to sell. We are called to sell. And when we work diligently in our business, God will reward us with riches and abundance. Abundance is the reward for a diligent hand, not for a hand of laziness, right? So we are rewarded for that. And so sales is not just a noble profession, but it is the profession that will allow us to be on the path to abundance. Not just having blessings so that we can be blessed. It's not just so that we can have abundance. It is to have enough abundance so we can be a blessing to others. And that is the beautiful part of it all. Right? And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you great content today. Right? Now that we got this out of the way, that sales is a God principle, so we don't have, when we approach the rest of this hour, we can approach it with a full heart, a grateful heart, right? And so now I'm going to give you amazing content, but then at the end, I'm going to spend 10 minutes making an offer, right? Is that fair? Yes? Is that fair? So just 10 minutes making an offer. Awesome. Okay. So what I found to be true in neuroscience is that if we want to really learn and apply what we've learned, right? When we just sit and we listen to something, we only retain like 10 to 20% of what we learned. And, as Terry mentioned, when you write it down, that increases actually to 25 to 30%. But if you really want to remember and retain information and be able to apply it later on, then you have to do something, right? Doing something increases that to 80% retention. And so sometimes when I'm giving my presentation, I might ask you to fill in the blank, or I might ask you to repeat after me or answer a question. And that is participating. And when we participate, we'll remember a lot more. Awesome. So feel free to unmute yourself. If I ask questions as well, just unmute yourself and participate. I mean, we don't have a lot of people here anyway. So just participate and we will all learn together. Does that sound good? Awesome. Okay. So I just want to congratulate you for being here, right? So I'm sure there's not a problem here, but I always like to remind people to turn off their cell phones and close other browsers because we don't want to be distracted. And as I mentioned before, participating to learn, right? And so I want to share with you why this is different. I'm sure all of you have been on a lot of webinars before where people talk about theory. They talk about, here's what this person did, stories about what other business owners did, or they talk about themselves and spend a lot of minutes doing that. But I am here and I'm not going to share theory with you. This is real practical information, practical steps that I teach people from stage on how to close more sales, how to attract more clients. And so this is stuff that I have done myself to take my business to the next level. So it is not theory, it is actual strategy. And so the thing is, I've had the opportunity to share the stage from the world's best in marketing, business strategy, sales, stage speaking, and building wealth, right? People like Russell Brunson, I'm sure you've heard of Russell Brunson, people like Dan Lok, people like Michael Gerber, who was the author of the E-Myth series books, right? And people like Myron Golden. Myron Golden is the host of the Bible Success Secrets podcast, which is an amazing podcast. I highly recommend that. And he's one of my mentors as well. Peng Joon, and also Martha Stewart, who is a great businesswoman, right? So in this hour, my goal is to show you and to share with you the truth about why people buy anything at all. This is the psychology behind buying, and the 3 big secrets of how effective storytelling really works in sales. Why does it work? Right? We kind of hear this in theory, and people talk about the fluffy stuff about telling stories all the time, but why does it work? And how can you truly apply it using principles of neuroscience? So my question to you is, would you like to learn how to join the top 5% of revenue earners in the world, without being born with sales talent? You don't have to be a talented salesperson or win sales rewards to do this. Without being pushy, salesy, or hard selling, or having to sell anything to your friends and family. And those are actually, by the way, the 2 exact reasons why we despise sales. Because people are pushy, they're trying to hard sell, and they sell to you as a friends and family. You kind of feel a little bit betrayed, right? And so that's the thing. That's why we despise sales. And the rule is that we will never become that which we despise. We won't contradict ourselves. So that's the exact reason why we despise sales. We won't become that which we despise. And that is the only reason that is one of the obstacles preventing us from being able to sell consistently the way we want to, because we won't become what we despise. And then the last thing here is without lowering your price. A lot of people think, I'm not getting any sales. Maybe my price point is too high. And the first thing they do is they lower their price. But there's no advantage in being the second cheapest in your industry. No advantage at all. It's like a box of nails. You take a box of nails, maybe it's $3.50 in one store, and then it's $3.45 in another store. But the thing is, that becomes a commodity. When you compete on price, people will look for the cheapest price, and there's no competitive advantage in that. So lowering your price puts you in a commodity market, and we don't want to be in a commodity market. We want to be in a premium market where people are paying for the value of what you provide, the worth of it, and not for competitive pricing. Right? And so for this next hour, who this is for is if you're not making enough sales, or if you are getting enough sales, but you want to get more, or if you have kids and you want your words to affect positive changes in them. If you're a speaker and you want your message to impact your audience positively, then this is for you. Right? And so I believe in commitment, and I believe in staying right to the end. So if you stay to the end, I have a gift for you. And how many of you would like to accept this ethical bribe, right? So if you stay to the end, you'll get access to my Neuroscience of Sales lesson. So this was a lesson that I was featured with Kevin Harrington. And those of you who know Kevin Harrington, he was one of the original sharks in the Shark Tank, right? So I was featured with Kevin Harrington in this Ultimate Sales Momentum. And my lesson in that book and in that course was on the neuroscience of sales. And I will give you that lesson at the end of this hour, right? And so I'll give you a link where you can access that, and you can keep it as well and listen to it. So that's what my ethical bribe is. If you stay until the end, I'll give you that lesson for free. Okay. So a little bit more about me. So I'm Dr. Grace Lee, and when I finished my PhD, and my PhD was in neuroscience, I really had no clue what I was going to do with my life. When you go to college, they teach you everything about something, and so they taught me about neuroscience, but they don't teach you how to make money from it. They spend little to no time on making money. And so what I started doing was I started speaking. During college, I started speaking about career leadership, a little bit about business. And all I did was I was just 2 steps ahead of them. And so I held these seminars, and eventually this grew to a speaking business. And eventually I got into consulting, right? And I was teaching offline and online principles on building a business, growing a business, and scaling a business. And today, I have a strong social media presence, and I'm still teaching offline and online. Well, not offline anymore with the pandemic, right? But once this kind of calms down, I actually get invited to speak in different countries around topics on business and leadership. And so you see, the thing is, people only see the sizzle reel. They look at where you are right now, and they only see the sizzle reel. But the thing is, it wasn't always like this for me. And here's what people don't know. You know, when I was 8, on my 8th birthday, my nuclear family was involved in a car accident, and my mom was driving. It was a head-on collision at top speed, and she passed away. She was in a coma, severe head trauma. That's what seeded my interest in neuroscience. She passed away, and she passed away. And what happened was, when she passed away, a couple of years later, my father remarried. He had kids in that second marriage, and he basically told me he cannot take care of me anymore because he had his hands full with the two new kids, right? And so at the age of 10, I was on my own. He asked me to leave the house. I don't know why. So I left the house, and I was without a place to call home, nobody to support me, and I was 10 years old. And so for 4 years, I was living on my own, struggling, figuring out what to do, just completely lost, suicidal, depressed, and everything. Until my 14th birthday, I met this couple serendipitously, because I started working in a restaurant when I was 11 years old, just to survive, right? And so this couple came to eat at the restaurant, and they asked me to stay with them, just like that, out of nowhere. They said, I think you need a place to stay. Grace, why don't you come and stay with us? And so I went and I followed the couple home. I stayed with them, and that's where I stayed in high school, was with that couple, and they raised me for the 4 years remaining in high school. And this is actually where I grew up. It is a small village of 800 people in rural Manitoba, which is a prairie province in the middle of Canada, in the middle of nowhere. I was the only person who was not Caucasian. It was predominantly a Caucasian society, and I was the only one that was, well, visible minority. And so nobody wanted to be my friend. And there was a lot of racism. I grew up with a lot of kids who were mean and bullying, and I was very alone. So I was this awkward, shy kid who nobody wanted to be seen with, no one wanted to be friends with. And I really didn't know how to speak well. And I was just so awkward and introverted. And so why am I sharing this with you, right? What I'm saying is this: if I can do it, you can do it too, right? And sales calls, sales presentations, you might think that it requires extroversion, but that's not true. Introverted energy actually allows you to think and allows you to be more reflective on the call. So in some ways, it's an advantage. So if I can do it, you can do it too, and I'm going to show you how. So this was the history of my business when I first started. The first time I ever took a sales call, right? I was trying to close my prospect into a $5,000 career coaching program. And this was the first time I ever talked to a prospect. That call lasted 3.5 hours. It was just, I had no idea. I had no control over the call, and I didn't know what to say next. And I was so nervous, and I thought, I don't know how to convince this person to buy my thing. And of course, at the end of the 3.5 hours, she gave me all the objections. You know, I want this, but I don't have enough money in my savings to move forward. But could I think about it and get back to you? I need to talk to my husband and see if he'll support me. You know, I need to think about it. I don't make brass decisions, just everything. I got all the objections, and I didn't make the sale. And so here was my plan. This is what my plan at that time was. Okay, I got to get more sales because I need to make this business work. I really need to survive this. You know, this was like, I had quit my corporate job already, and I needed to make this work. And so I spent $4,000 to $6,000 per month on ads just to get more booked calls so I can do more sales call, get more leads, right? And then I expanded my calendar, 10-hour days from 5 a.m. to 8 p.m., taking sales calls Monday to Saturday. I only took Sunday off. And so calls started coming in because I spent more money on ads. And then I took at least 4 to 8 calls every single day. I did follow-up calls because I got a lot of maybes. Oh, maybe, can I think about it? So I had all these follow-up calls as well to do, right? And I reviewed my own calls just to get better. I read all these sales books. I did the morning meditation. I did the affirmation statements. I was relentless and committed. And I thought, I just need more practice. And that was my plan, right? How many of you can relate to this, right? How many of you can relate to this plan? That's what I did. And I told myself, I want to make more sales with ease. I know I can do way better, right? And so a couple months had passed. I got the mentorship in sales, the training that I needed in sales, and I finally passed 6 figures. I made my over $100,000 in a single month.
Wow.
And that was what happened. Right. And so after over 320 calls of failing, right, of, losing control of the conversation, objections, I discovered the hard way, right? I discovered it the hard way. So if you've been struggling in sales or just not quite being consistent with it, this is probably why, right? I boil it down to a few principles of why, because we've been doing it the hard way. And this is the traditional advice. A lot of salespeople or other business owners, this is what they say. They say, just practice and you'll get better. Or they say, well, you just got to market yourself by telling them how good you are. Or they say, you got to be polished in your speech, right? Be polished. Or they say, you got to talk smooth or give good advice and they will buy. Or they say, don't take no for an answer, be aggressive. Or they say, be aggressive when handling their objections. You just can't let them get off the phone. Or they say, work harder at getting a yes, or tell them all the features and benefits of what you're selling. That's the hard way. And that's how I did it. And it didn't work for me. And it doesn't work for a lot of people. That's the traditional advice. So what's the alternative, right? What's the alternative? It's plan B. This is non-conventional wisdom, right? We always want to know the unconventional wisdom. So this is plan B. Here are the principles of what works. Practice makes permanent, right? So what are you practicing? Right? Market yourself by not marketing yourself, because you don't want to be telling people what you know. You want to let your prospects shine. You want to let them be the star of the show. Make it about them, not about you. Instead of being polished, be caring, be compassionate, right? Instead of talking smooth, don't talk. What you want to do is ask powerful questions and let them talk. Let them sell themselves on it. Be genuinely curious. And when you couple that with being caring, they will open up to you and tell you how to sell them. Yes and no are both acceptable. It's not that you don't take no for an answer. Both are acceptable to you. And so the thing is, you got to divorce yourself from the outcome. Yes and no are both acceptable. All you're doing is helping them make the decision they already want to make. And so when you pull back on that, they will come forward. It's kind of like dating, right? If someone's too needy, all of a sudden they're not interested, right? So yes and no are both acceptable, and it's okay. And it's actually advisable to let them know that I'll take yes and no for an answer. It's both are fine. I'm just here to help you make the best decision in your best interest. Handle objections throughout the call before they start. That's where listening is very important. And you create buying momentum. And at the end, it will be a no-brainer. So what you want to do is uncover the value of what you have to offer. And when you uncover enough value, they will be willing to exchange the money they have in their pocket for the outcome that you will provide, the value that you will give them. And that is the reason that the strongest reason that they will have to buy is the value you uncover is more than their willingness to keep the money in their pocket, right? If you can solve a $10,000 problem, and your offer is only $2,000, then they will happily exchange money and thank you for it. So what I want to share with you is the 3 secrets of selling, the 3 secrets of it. The first secret is that, here's it is, why humans are created to be sold on stories, by stories, since the beginning of time, why this is the case. Secret number 2 is how anyone can tell the most compelling story, even if you have no experience or 0 sales talent. And secret number 3 is the simplest, most honorable way to get a yes every time your dream clients hear you speak, read your posts, or watch your presentations. That's what I'm here to talk about. So how many of you would like to hear those secrets? Yes? Awesome. Okay. So
Yes.
Yes? Awesome. Love it. Love it. So secret number 1, why humans are created to be sold on stories, by stories since the beginning of time. Let's go back to the story in Genesis chapter 1. And God said, of every tree of the garden you may freely eat, but of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat, for in the day that you eat of it, you shall surely die. right? So notice the story that God was telling Adam and Eve was that you are in abundance. Every tree of the garden you may freely eat, freely. Those are abundance words. So the story is you are in a land of abundance here, and there is evil, but I am keeping evil in a box. The tree of knowledge of good and evil, I'm keeping evil in a box. So as long as you are obedient and you love me and you trust me and you are obedient to me, evil will stay in that box away from you, and you can continue to live in abundance. That was a story that God was telling Adam and Eve. So then the serpent comes along and he says, well, has God indeed said, you shall not eat of every tree of the garden? You will not surely die. For God knows that in the day you eat of it, your eyes will be opened and you will be like God, knowing good and evil. So the serpent comes and tells Adam and Eve a different story. Right? He inserts the word not in there where God didn't gave right abundance words. The serpent comes in and inserts the not in there. It changes the story. And the story caused Adam and Eve to eat from the tree of knowledge. Right. And so we know what happens next. And so you see, all he did was come in and tell a different story. And then the history of mankind was set. So you see, over 150,000 years, story and storytelling have dominated human interaction and communication. We relied on stories to communicate and archive learning, right? Archive wisdom and facts, histories, beliefs, etc. We relied on stories to do that before writing was invented. And because we relied on stories to communicate and archive in human memory, it has evolutionary rewired the human brain to think in specific story terms. So you were born to make sense of the world in story terms. And story is your framework for making sense of what's going on outside and inside of us. And they help us create meaning out of the world. We're telling ourselves a story all the time. It's just a question of, well, is that story you're telling yourself helping you, or is it preventing you from getting to where you want to be? And the most influential stories that we tell ourselves are the stories we don't even remember. And so we make sense of everything that we perceive in this world, everything that we experience in this world through story. And here's another piece of evidence. The global film industry was $38 billion of revenue in 2016, and it's grown this year to $50 billion. So what is a billion? How much is a billion, right? For $1 billion, you can afford to give every man, woman, and child in Canada almost $1,500. With $1 billion, you could buy 1.6 million Hyundai Sonatas, which are worth around $30,000 each. You can also buy 250,000 houses that cost $200,000 each, which is the average home price across Canada, across the US. So that's $1 billion. The Hollywood film industry and film industries across the world are profiting from telling stories. We are captivated by stories. They move us, they give us new meaning, new perspectives, and they cause us to take certain actions we would never take before. They cause us to feel things we would never have felt before. They cause us to insert ourselves in that story and therefore make meaning of our own lives. Hollywood has been profiting from it since the beginning of time, and there's a reason why. If you tell a good story, that film will profit even more, like Star Trek, like Avatar. All those stories, those blockbusters, is because they knew how to tell a good story. And so in our brains, we have something called the make sense mandate, which means that we are mandated. We have to make sense of everything. If we can't make sense of it, we will ignore it. So that's why we have a make sense mandate. And so there is parts of our brain, a network in our brain called the neural story network. And yes, it's actually a thing. So you can see the picture of the brain, those highlighted parts, that's the network where we use stories to make sense of the world. And it lights up, those areas in our brain light up to decode the deeper meaning of information. When information comes in through our 5 senses, if we process it, coming in from our sensory organs, that information passes to our conscious brain, and then it turns information into story, even before it reaches your conscious mind. You either make sense of the information in story terms, or you ignore it. If it doesn't make sense to you, you will ignore it. If you can't tell a story around it, you will ignore it because it doesn't make sense. So that's why we are sold on stories, because it's so hardwired into our brain. We are hardwired to make sense of the world through story, right? How many of you are picking up what I'm putting down, right? You can relate to that, right? Yeah. Okay, so that is why we are sold on stories. So why are we sold by stories? And the reason why is because every time we hear a story, our brain makes a drug cocktail, a cocktail of drugs inside of our brain. And we respond by these three strong emotions: stress, pleasure, and empathy. When we experience stress after hearing a story, maybe it's a sad story, maybe it's one of those really horrific stories, and we feel stress from it, our bodies produce cortisol. And cortisol is produced in the adrenal glands, which sit on top of our kidneys. That's where it's produced, right? And so we produce cortisol. And it is produced because our body is trying to warn us, and it's trying to get our attention about something because it could be harmful. So that's why cortisol gets produced. And it helps us stay attentive. Cortisol is important. It grabs our attention. It keeps our attention. And so when you tell a story out there in your marketing message, in your advertisement, or in your sales presentations or sales calls, that is the top of the funnel experience, right? Top of the funnel, if you think about a sales funnel, it's wide at the top. It is at the top because it increases your prospects or your future customers' awareness level of the problem they have. Most people are living life, they don't even know their own problems, but they're suffering. And so you bring them awareness, you grab their attention, you hook them in. So that's the problem. They're aware of the problem, and then your presentation or your sales copy agitates that problem. They produce more cortisol. You grab their attention. That's how you initially attract clients in. You increase their levels of cortisol. They're aware of their problem now. So they go from being unaware to being problem aware. Then the next step is pleasure, right? So that's where dopamine is released. Dopamine is released in the dopaminergic neurons inside of our brain. There are specialized cells that secrete and produce dopamine. They release dopamine inside of our brains. The blood carries it around, right? Our circulation carries it around. So dopamine is produced to reward us for good behavior. So as you are here listening to me, your brain is producing dopamine because you're rewarding yourself for good behavior. I'm paying attention. I'm learning about sales. I'm gonna take my business to the next level. So you're getting a dopamine surge right now, right? And so dopamine helps us stay on the journey. And this takes care of the customer's middle of the funnel experience. So now the sales funnel is wide on top. They're funneling them down. Now they're in the middle, which is a little bit more narrow, and they are considering. They go from awareness to now consideration. What are my options to solve my problem? You could be one of those options. So if you tell a story, give them dopamine. What you're doing is you're agitating the problem with your sales copy, your presentation of the story you're telling, and that moves them into considering your opportunity or your solution. So you're agitating more to solve. Then empathy. Empathy it produces the hormone oxytocin, which is called the social hormone. It's produced to promote empathetic behavior. Whenever we feel connected to someone, whenever we resonate with someone, is because of oxytocin. Yes. And oxytocin helps us identify with the main character of a story. We relate to them, we feel sorry for them, or we're excited for them, right? So this is now the customer's bottom of the funnel experience. Right when you're about to make the sale, they're about to make a decision now, a buying decision, right? So then this is future pacing. When you future pace, you are showing them the future of a possibility, a better possibility for them, and they connect with that and they empathize with the story you're telling them. Yes, that is possible for me as well, right? And so here's the key. We get this drug cocktail in our brains, and our brains are making sense of the world through information that we receive. Your listeners are doing the same thing. And before the information reaches their conscious mind, they have a story. If they can make sense of it, if they produce the highest levels of cortisol and oxytocin, they're actually more likely to give money generously. And this has been proven by science. The references are there below if you want to reference them. So now we have a drug that helps produce action at the bottom of the funnel, which is the buying decision. And so you see, stories change our brain chemistry. And when our brain chemistry changes, then our behavior changes as well. Right? So how many of you are now picking up what I'm putting down? Isn't that awesome?
Definitely.
Yeah. So there's a science behind it. We give more generously if we have more oxytocin produced in our brain and more dopamine, right? And more cortisol. If that is elevated, if you can elevate someone's drug chemicals in their brain through story, they're more likely to give generously. And so all of this I learned through trial and error and through investment into mentors, into seminars, into sales speaking, and my total investment to learn all of this and the processes involved in growing a business as well. My total investment to learn all of this was $418,000. And this does not include my college degrees because I got a scholarship for it. Okay, so maybe $60,000 of it was college degrees because I had a student loan, right? And so that was my total investment. And that's why people paid $12,000 for me to mentor them in their business in my program called the Mind to Millionaire Blueprint, right? I take them through the process to take their business to the next level. So I was acquiring this knowledge by going through seminars, attending masterminds, learning from mentors, because I believe that the number one investment a person can make is in themselves. So I hope that you will make use of this knowledge that I'm sharing with you. And that took me about 10 years to acquire, right? That was like more than 10 years ago when I first started college. Okay, so who does this work for? All of this process that I'm sharing with you, top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, the drug cocktail, who does it work for? It works for entrepreneurs, speakers from stage, because you're telling stories to sell at the end, making an offer at the end, or you're trying to speak from stage to help them to make a change in their life. So it works for speakers, coaches, consultants, right? It works for seminar leaders as well. If you are speaking in front of church and you want them to really take their life to a different level, make a different decision for themselves and their family, it works there. It works for business leaders. It works for thought leaders, teachers in the classroom, service providers, managers, and anyone who wants to serve others with their skills and produce a high revenue for it. Right? So that is secret number one, why we are created to be sold on stories, by stories since the beginning of time. That's secret number one. All right. So now secret number two, how anyone can tell the most compelling story, even if you have no experience or zero sales talent. So secret number two is a little bit more involved. So get your notebooks out here, right? Okay. So now going back to Genesis chapter 1, when the serpent changed the story and just asked them a question, had God indeed said, you shall not eat of every tree of the garden? You will not surely die. Why did this work? Why did it work for Adam and Eve that they would go and they would eat from that tree, even though God specifically told them not to? Why does it work? So here's why it works. So God said, of every tree of the Garden of Eden, of a garden, you may freely eat. So every and freely are abundance words. And then he said, but if you trust and obey me, I will keep evil in that box away from you, and you will continue enjoying abundance for the rest of your life. And so you see the story that God was telling Adam and Eve, the identity character in that story was you, right? You may freely eat. So Adam and Eve, it was you. That was the identity character, the main character, the heroine of the story was you. The antagonist in that story was evil. Right? I'm keeping evil in a box, locked up in a box for you. Evil is present, but I'm protecting you from it so long as you trust and you obey me. Right? So the antagonist here is evil. The outcome of the story, if you continue on this journey, you will continue to enjoy abundance. Right? So the three elements of the story, the character, the antagonist, and what is the outcome of the story? How does it end out? So that's the story that God was saying. So then the serpent comes in and inserts those two words, not. You shall not eat, for you will not surely die. So he comes and changes the story by putting these two words in there. And not are actually the opposite of abundance words. They are lack words. So what God did was he kept the identity character the same. The identity character is still you. But look what he did. He changed the antagonist. The antagonist of the story of the serpent was lack. The outcome was still abundance. So he changed the story to get Adam and Eve to recognize the one thing they don't have, which was knowledge of good and evil. And all he did was change the antagonist of the story, and they were sold on a new focus. They focused on the one thing they lacked, and they walked past all of their abundance to get it. You see, that tree was in the middle of the Garden of Eden. In order for them to even get to the tree, they had to walk past all of their abundance to get to it. All of their abundance. And so right, they had to get to there. They had to walk past all of their abundance to get to their lack. And so the serpent told them the story that changed their focus. The abundance and lack are both there. but you get the one you focus on. You tell the story to get them to focus on something, and they will go there. So there's 2 lessons you can learn here. The first lesson is that don't focus on lack, because lack perpetuates lack. And the second one is all you have to do is change the antagonist of your story, and you can sell more easily than ever before. You see how powerful this is? How powerful that one technique is. So it is so powerful that you need to make a promise that you will not use any of this for manipulation.
Mm.
So let me hear you say it. I promise.
I promise.
Yeah, don't use any of this for manipulation, right? So we want to do good in the world. Right? Sales is a noble occupation. It is very powerful. Words are powerful. So we want to use it for good. Right? Okay, so here's what we learned from this. Right? Stories are more persuasive than any explanation or education you can give. It is more powerful. But the residual motion you feel after hearing the story is the greatest factor driving the influence of the story. And so when Adam and Eve heard that story, they felt missing out. They felt gypped. That was the residual emotion. And that was the driving factor behind their lack, their focus on their lack. So stories are more persuasive than any explanation or education you can give. And that's why you don't want to sell based on logic. You sell on emotion first. And story is not about the content. It's the way you organize the content. So just by restructuring the story so that you're positioning the people within the story, right, so that they will participate in the positions where you want them to participate themselves. Right? So that's the thing. It's just restructuring the story so that you are positioning the listeners within the story so that listeners will participate in the positions where you want them to participate themselves. So the serpent wanted Adam and Eve to participate in the position of God. God is all-knowing. He knows all good and evil, but you want to be like God. So he positioned his listeners that way. And that is why story selling is not about the content. It's just a simple restructure. So there's this awesome quote. Once you allow yourself to identify with the people in a story, then you might begin to see yourself in that story, even if on the surface it's far removed from your situation. So if you tell a good story, that's why you have to be very good at telling stories. So that's secret number 2, how anyone can tell the most compelling story, even if you have no experience or 0 sales talent. That's how you can do it. And the serpent had had 0 sales talent, but he knew how to position his listeners. Okay, so secret number 3, the simplest, most honorable way to get a yes every time your dream clients hear you speak, read your post, or watch your presentation. Remember at the beginning, right? You have a moral obligation. He that withholdeth corn, the people shall curse him, but blessing shall be upon the head of him that selleth it. It is your moral obligation. If you have something good, if you believe in what you do, if you believe in your message, that it will do good on those that God has put in your path to serve, then you have a moral obligation to sell it. And the blessing will be upon your head that selleth it. And you have to do whatever it takes to sell it. Create buying momentum, like in this photo, that they will rush to the back of the room or rush to your cart because they really want to buy what you have to sell. Then that is the only place where you get to serve them. That is how you create the space to serve them, by giving them an opportunity to buy from you. So the first step to doing this is to list down all possible objections that your intended audience may have. They might object to, for example, it's too expensive. They might object to, I don't know if this will work for me. They might object to, well, I don't think I have time. They might object to, I don't know if I am the right industry. They might object to, well, I'm not a man. They might object to, I don't think I'm old enough for that. Or they might say, I'm too old for that. Whatever their objections are, you list them all out. That's the first step. And then the second step is you turn all of these objections into teaching points, right? So how many of you might be thinking that you are not old enough to do this? Well, here's what I have found to be true. And then you teach them. You provide the value up front so that when it comes to the end of your presentation or the end of your call, they have all their objections taken care of. And it is no longer a fight to convince them. It is now just about, well, what other questions you have? How do you want to proceed? How would you like to proceed? How would you like to move forward? That's all that's left to talk about at the end. So you turn all of these objections into teaching points, and you handle the objections along the way before they begin, because you've done the preparation beforehand. And then the third step is you teach these points using stories to elicit the emotion that is required for them to take the desired action. And one of the most powerful stories you can tell are your clients' stories or your own stories in that struggle when you were in their shoes or when you were 10 steps ago. Right. And so if you look at this movement, what you're doing is you're telling stories, you're eliciting the emotion, you are creating the cortisol, the awareness of the problem if they don't change it, if the awareness of the consequences of the problem, if they don't make a decision to change it. And so you're raising their cortisol and you're raising their oxytocin levels by showing them the other side, the future of what that could look like for them. And they can empathize with you because you're positioning them, the antagonist, to be what has been in their life or in their business or their career or their relationships. Right? So you look at, where does this work? It works in everything that you put out there on social media, articles you write, YouTube videos that you record, presentations, speeches you're going to give, sales letters, ads, podcast episodes, lessons you teach, marketing messages, sales calls, basically anywhere that you are getting your message out there. That's where this works. And the only tools you need to make it work are very simple. You just need your phone, you need your brain to think about it, to think about the objections and to connect with other people and to be human. And you need a sales process. The sales process is very important because the sales process is where you take your customer journey through first hearing your message into enrolling them into your solution. That's the sales process. Those are the only tools you need. So that's the third secret. The simplest, most honorable way to get a yes every time your dream clients hear you speak, read your posts, or watch your presentations, right? So now you know the 3 secrets of story selling, right? The secret number 1, why we're created to be sold on stories, by stories, right? How anyone can tell the most compelling story, and the simplest, most honorable way to get a yes. You know these 3 secrets now. So then my question is, what's next, right? So how many of you would like to know what's next? Yes, awesome.
I would.
Awesome. So what's next for you, right? So we are now in August. 218 days have passed in 2020, in the year 2020. Isn't that scary? This was your last 280 days in 2020. So what would you like your remaining 147 days to look like? What would you like to look at? What would you like it to look like in your business, in your life, and in your family? What would you like that to look like? So the question I had was given to me. So I was in a mastermind with Russell Brunson, and this was the 2 Comma Club, where we were all income earners in our business. And he asked this question: what if you lost it all in your business right now and you had to rebuild? What would you do next? And he was asking all the seven-figure business earners, what would you do if you lost it all and you had to rebuild? And so my answer to that was, I would double down on the skill that I had, which was selling. Because sales is the one skill that you can produce the revenue that you have for your company. Without sales is one of the most important business activities that you can do in your business. If I had lost it all and I had to rebuild, all I had to do was talk to more people. And I would use my skills to get it all back, to rebuild my business again. And the money that I get from sales, I would reinvest into marketing, into the automation processes, but I wouldn't automate first. So that was my answer. And so because of that, now here's where I want to share with you what I have prepared for you, right? If that was my process, if I lost it all and had to rebuild, that's what I would do. And so what I would impress upon you is that you too can develop the skill. And so remember, in the beginning, I said, I want to spend 10 minutes showing you what I have created for you, right? Yes? Okay. So here's what I have prepared for you. It is the sales momentum mastery. Sales momentum mastery, right? And so this is my training, right? My sales training, my process, the script that I use, the exact process I use to sell consistently and close over 70% of my sales conversations. Yes, 70%. Right? So this works for you if you want to hit your income goals fast, if you want to grow your business, help a lot of people, make sales easily and honorably, and if you want to train your sales team in the future, when your business grows, you might want to bring in more salespeople. And this is like a plug and play. Once you know this process, you train them on it. There is a system, there is a script, there is an SOP, and they will hit the ground running right away. So this works for you if you want to do one or more of these things. And so actually, this sales momentum mastery was part of my Mind to Millionaire blueprint. It was a deliverable in it. It was one of the milestones and modules that I teach in my Mind to Millionaire blueprint. Right? And so my Mind to Millionaire blueprint was based on 3 pillars of coaching. It was on attracting clients, attracting your best clients, your most ideal clients, right? So building audiences, ads as well, branding. And it was on building sales processes, building funnels, building systems, and then closing, where you converse, you pitch, and you close. So this is what I coach every single week in my program, the Mind to Millionaire blueprint. I coach this every single week. And there's exercises, there are breakout rooms. I do this with them. And so they practice these things. My clients practice them on a weekly basis, right? And this is important, because how many of you agree that the thing that you want in life is on the other side of your comfort zone, right? It's on the other side of your comfort zone. Everything you want is on the other side of your comfort zone. And so I teach these and I coach these on a weekly basis. And so for this sales momentum mastery, what we're focusing on is on the 3rd pillar, the close pillar. Converse, pitch, and close, right? And so for this training, for the Millionaire Sales Momentum, for the Millionaire Sales Momentum, I'm covering the 3rd pillar, right? The 3rd pillar of coaching. So here's what you're going to get. What you're going to get is the Sales Momentum Mastery live training. I actually do this live. It's not a set of recording. I do this live, just like this, and I'm interacting with you. You can unmute yourself. You can ask questions. I do it live. And so that's the first thing. And the value for that is $19.97. And the time for the live training, the sessions happen every Tuesday, 7 a.m. PST, which is 10 a.m. EST, which is 1 hour later than this one started, right? And it's going to start August 25th for 6 weeks, right? So that is what you're going to get. They will be recorded. If you don't make it live, they will be recorded. You have access to the recording. You can keep the recording so you can listen to it again and again, especially if you're on the hot seat and I'm coaching you, it will be very beneficial for you to listen to that recording. So the second thing you're going to get is the secret script that I use, that I have taught thousands of other business owners and entrepreneurs like you to implement and adopt right away to start getting sales now. So the secret script includes all the objection handling secrets, how you can handle objections in the beginning. And if you do get some objections at the end that you missed throughout the call, how do you handle those too? So I will give you the scripts and the principle behind how do you handle objections. So that is 147. The other thing you're going to get is the momentum coaching sessions. So they happen right after the live. We open it up to coaching and everyone can get in the hot seat. I provide coaching right there on the spot. We all listen in, we all benefit from each other. And that is $35.47. So the total value of this whole thing is $5,691. That's the total value of this, right? So my question to you is, if all this did was finally get you a sales conversation rate that was consistent and profitable, even after you spent money on ads, would it be worth it? If all this does was get you clients that show up eager and ready to work with you after they thank you for selling them, would it be worth it? If all this did was give you a replicable sales framework that you could teach to your team when it's time to scale your business, would it be worth it? And I love bonuses, right? How many of you love bonuses? Yes or yes, right? So bonuses. I always believe that people who are serious about action takers, who are serious and committed, they are action takers. And I love to reward action takers. So for the first 2 people that enroll, I will offer one-on-one coaching, a one-on-one coaching call, a private coaching call with me. You can go over a sales call, you can do a role play with me, or I can help you with whatever you need. But you have that hour with me and my whole team behind me, whatever you need, even marketing, ads, it doesn't matter. You can ask me anything and I will coach you through it. So that is the bonus for this first 2 people. So the thing is, even if I could charge 10,000 plus for this, it would still be totally worth it. But I am not going to charge you 10,000 and I'm not going to charge you $56.91 either. I am not going to charge you that. So the investment for this, for the sales momentum mastery is not going to be $5,691, right? Your investment for this, for all of it, is just $547. Is just $547. And the reason why I'm charging $547 is because I want you to master your sales. I want you to master it so that you can sell your way to wealth, so that you can have enough blessing to be a blessing to other people. So you can have enough abundance, more than enough, so you can offer abundance to others. That's why I'm doing this. And then when you've created enough wealth, then you can come back to me, and you can come into my Mind to Millionaire blueprint, and I can help you take your business to 1 million. So that's why I'm doing it. So if you're committed and you're going to take action and you're serious about your business, then this will be one of the most profitable moves you can make for yourself and your business. Because how many of you would take an offer if I said, I'm going to sell you $100 bill, but I'm going to sell it to you for $20? Is that a good deal? Yes. So that's exactly what's happening here. I'm selling you $100 bill for $20. Right? So if you got an offer like that, wouldn't you do that day in and day out? Every day you would keep paying $20 for as long as you had $20 if you would get $100 back. So that is what is here. For this small investment to increase your sales, to enroll more clients. So it's just $547, or you can do 2 payments of $350 if that helps you out, right? So apply now. To get started, just go to masteryinsights.com/salesmastery. masteryinsights.com/sales-mastery. And what you would do is there's a video there just to give you some more training on the framework. And then you book a call with me, and you will be talking to me, not a member of my team. You'll be talking directly to me. This was an offer I created just for Kingdom Women in Business. I'm doing this just for you. So then you go there, book a call with me. I will talk to you personally, and then we will explore what's working in your business, what's not working, and how we can get you to the next level. And then when you're ready to get started, then I will send you all the details after that. Right? So now you have 2 choices. The first option is you can do nothing. You can take the information that I gave you in this webinar, and you can try to figure it out yourself and not take this leap of faith. And that is 100% risk-free, right? That first option is 100% risk-free. Or you can do the second option. You can make the small investment today compared to all the value you get in return. And when you make this leap of faith, right? Proverbs said that without counsel, plans fail, but with many advisors, they succeed. The second option has a small risk, but it is a much greater return, because when you invest in yourself, it is the best investment you'll ever make. Right? And so as I promised you, you say to the end of my webinar, say to the end of this hour, this is the access to my Neuroscience of Sales lesson. So just go to masteryinsights.com/sales-momentum. So there's a dash in that one, and you can access that training right away, and it is for free. So if you enter your name and email address there, you will get the link to that Neuroscience of Sales lesson in your inbox, right? So that is where you can access that. And again, the link to apply now is down below. And that is what I had to share with you today. And we mentioned that we're going to open the floor to some questions about anything at all. Oh, I see the chat as well. Oh, I see. I promise. I didn't see the chat earlier.
Oh my God, that was so awesome. Thank you so much. I think I'm like very analytical, so I love